Hey guys, welcome to the Friday Coffee Break. This is Patrick Freecourt. Hopefully you can hear me. I know there's a lot of background noise. I'm going to stay as close as I can to this mic. It's just real busy at Starbucks today. But you know what? This is our out-of-office office, so this is where we're going to shoot this video today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some questions from you guys. I came in through this during the week. They're pretty good questions. You guys are awesome. We'll take 4 or 5 of them, okay? And then we're going to kind of go through kind of a little story that I think it will hit near and dear to a lot of you guys out there. So here we go. All right, this is coming from John out in, I think, Wisconsin, John. Thank you very much, John, for taking the time to send in your question. Great question. How can I get started in wholesaling pre-foreclosures with zero out-of-pocket money? I mean zero. All right, John, there's 2 ways I can answer this. Number 1, I can give you a BS answer. I made a mistake there. Like other gurus might lead you to believe, okay? Or 2, I can tell you the real way. John, if you have $0 whatsoever, nothing, okay? You're gonna have a challenge even finding deals. Isn't that true? Yes. But there's still a way you can do it. Now you're gonna have to, there's 2 parts here. Number 1, you have to find a deal. Number 2, you have to liquidate that deal. When I say find it, cultivate it, turn it into a product, and then sell it, okay? What I would recommend to you, right, is that you find the best partner you can find in your area, the absolute best there is in the pre-foreclosure industry. And what I'm going to do is explain to you a way you can partner with them where you get paid very well for what you do, they get a fair share of it, and you can build up a little money, get a lot of experience, and then take this back on your own. So number 1, find the best there is in your backyard. Nobody but the best. If you do, they'll appreciate the efforts that you're going to put in here. Number 2, you're going to focus your time and energy on going out and actually finding these buyers. There's ways you can do it without money. I mean the sellers. There's ways you can do this without money. You can go down to your local town halls or the courthouse, research this stuff on your own, okay? Find out where the NODs are, the Liz pendants, all by yourself, and then go and bang on their door. Yep, knock, knock, knock. This is John. I'd like to help you with your foreclosure, okay? Once you have this client on board, you've explained to them the benefits of doing business with you. You can avoid the foreclosure, you can go out of this on your own terms, you can possibly stay in the home if you can afford it, and this means you have to get some experience in doing loan modification, providing that service, but that's another great way to provide cash, John. And ultimately, get them on board with you. Once you've done that, you can plug them into the machine of a veteran, experienced pre-foreclosure expert who should have a buyer's list. And you can work off that list, get these properties liquidated, and figure out some sort of split. The more you do, the more you make. Sooner or later, you'll have money to work with. What would be the next step? Once you have a little money, I ditch the whole door knocking thing. It's effective, but it's extremely time consuming. It takes a lot of your time. My next step, my first monies, I'd still be partnering with an investor, but I'd spend some money on putting together outstanding leave behind packages that I would leave on the doorstep of these same homes, okay? It's less adversarial, you'll get a better exposure, cost you less money to do it overall, take a lot less time. And now you'll be working with a lot more deals. Once you have a few deals in a pipeline, you know, you close one wholesale deal, you're talking about maybe a $20,000 check. Even if you gave the other investor 50% of that, you've got $10,000 to work with. You're on your way. So don't be shy about working with investors and giving them a big piece of the profit for using some of their expertise to get you out the door. So that's how you'd start with zero money to work with, okay? And I mean zero. Thanks for the question, John. Next question here. Guys, I'm going to read these kind of quick because we're just, we're trying to limit these so you're not spending a whole lot of time watching this video. It says from Dan Mack. Dan, thank you for the question here. Is a deed recorded at the time of contract signing or right before the closing? Is a deed recorded at the time of contract signing or right before the double close? All right, now here's the deal on this. It's been a big drive by all the gurus for many years to run out, get the deed, get the deed, get the deed. And I'm going to tell you right now, don't get the deed, okay? You want the most obvious reason to that? I'll tell you right now. I mean, if you want exposure, this is what they don't tell you when you get the deed. The second you record that deed, you're liable for everything that happens on that property. Somebody walks in that property, slips and falls. Who do you think they're suing, Dan? You, brother, okay? I'm not kidding you. And that's something to be aware of. They didn't teach you that in Get the Deed School. There is absolutely positively no reason why you have to get and record a deed on a property, especially a pre-foreclosure property, that's in a negative equity position. And there's a lot of things that are changing in our legislation that's kind of pushing against it. So keep that in mind. I'd rather, if you want to get the deed, to get everybody in the comfy feeling, hold it in escrow. Record a memorandum or an affidavit stating that you have a deed in escrow or a purchase and sale agreement or an option agreement tying up the property with an equitable interest in the property. That secures all of your rights. Go through the transaction. Do not record that deed until the day that you're closing. There is an exception. It has to do with how we season out some FHA properties. We're going to have an FHA buyer, but we'll leave that one little exception for another call. Thank you for the question. It's a fantastic question. Let's get to our last question here. No, we can do two more. This is coming from, I can't even see who this came from. It says, I recently received a short sale acceptance letter from GMAC that stated, this transaction may not involve a third party who receives a deed prior to the closing. Sound familiar right now, Dan? Or after this closing and before recording of the deed to the purchaser. Does this mean that we cannot use a double close or simultaneous close at the exit of this deal? Listen, I'm going to read it one more time and then I'm going to explain this and what this means, okay? This transaction may not involve a third party who receives a deed prior to this closing or after this closing and before recording of the deed to the purchaser. Now, I understand the intent of the language. They're trying to stop the double simultaneous close, but the person who wrote this doesn't know anything about what they're talking about. Quite frankly, I think they're an idiot, all right? And I'd love to talk to them about it. But it says, this transaction, which is transaction between A and B, may not involve a third party who receives a deed prior to the closing. Well, you know what? Between the transaction A to B, there is not a third party receiving a deed before the closing. If anybody got a deed, it was party B, and that's party 2, not a third party. So even if you got a deed in advance, this language would have nothing to do with it, okay? I'm recommending that you don't record a deed in advance, and therefore this would all be a moot discussion. Let's carry on here. Or, it says, a deed prior to this closing or after this closing and before recording of the deed to the purchaser. So after this closing, A to B, and before recording the deed to the purchaser, B to C. Well, guess what? The recording of the deed, B to C, will never, ever, ever, ever precede the recording of the deed from A to B. Ever. And that's exactly what they're saying. They're saying don't let it ever happen. Don't record a deed from B to C before you record a deed from A to B. Well, no kidding. If we did, our title would be screwed up, wouldn't it? Excuse me. So, although I understand the intention of the language here, it's improperly written, it's way too ambiguous, and it's nothing to do with us, and we can still do a double closing, and any attorney would be able to be perfectly comfortable with doing it. So, great question, meaningless to us, understand it, okay? Let's do one more quick question here, all right? Question, can we do a short sale on a property where the client is not late, but has a buyer with a purchase contract? It's over-deaded. It's a long question, but the question really is, can we do a short sale on a property that is not late? The answer is absolutely positively yes. About 10% of all the properties that we negotiate debt on right now are not late yet, but they are upside down. The answer is absolutely you can do a short sale. However, most likely, the lender, the first or the second, are going to want some sort of promissory note coming back from the owner of that property. They're going to want to see some commitment back. Is it big? No. Is it a lot better than bringing $100,000 to the closing table? Yeah. If there's a $100,000 deficit, it might be a $15,000 promissory note ammed out over 20 years at a real ridiculously low interest rate. That's a good way to sell a property today. All right? That's a great out for somebody who's not behind on their payments, which means that, okay, their credit is still rock solid. And that's a key takeaway here. So, listen, thank you for those questions. They were fantastic. But let me end on this note, because I have a quote of the day for you, okay? Now, many of you know that I recently started fight training, which is mixed martial arts. I'm only into it a few weeks. And I was telling a friend of mine, or kind of a loose friend the other day, and they're like, Pat, what are you thinking? Are you ridiculous? You're 41 years old. What are you thinking starting fight training today? And then he's like, well, what's your goal? I'm like, well, I'll be honest with you, I'm not really sure. I want to get fit. I want to get strong. I want to be the best I can physically. I want to do some amateur fights, and I may want to get qualified as a professional fighter. I don't know. Like, well, what does that take? I'm like, you got to win 6 amateur fights. And they're like, that is absolutely impossible. You know what? There's a quote that goes along with this. It says, that which you do not try will remain impossible. That which you do not try will remain impossible. And I'll tell you right now, this quote can be carried over directly into your working environment. There is nothing that's impossible unless you don't go for it. This is Patrick Precourt signing off for this week's Friday Coffee Break. Have a great day.